This has been a really fun night, guys.
It's been great.
This has been a really fun night. Oh my god. Like, I just feel like we got Cena's father here. Like, we got the ring. And I just feel like Cena's dad is gonna, like, walk in any minute. And it just seems like this is the kind of night where, like, Cena's father is just gonna come by and...
It reminds me, it reminds me of this song.
It's like one of those nights, you know? Like, we're all having a lot of fun, we're hanging out,
Remember we had this successful episode. The last episode we did, you're so good.
Yeah, we're all just hanging out.
It was like,
yeah,
we were wicked drunk.
We finally had creative control. P.T. Anderson was drunk, or he was candy flipping, and it was awesome. Like, we had finally creative control. And, like, Cena's father, you know? Cena's father!
Cena's father!
My father! Stepfather! The son is...
That from the Illuminati dropped this off for you.
Oh.
Enjoy.
Cool. This is cool.
I think it's a confirmation.
I think this would be good.
It's going to be a confirmation.
I think it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be a confirmation
I think
of how good we did last time.
They're going to tell us that we did such a good show, and that we were so... Because we got banned. Our episode got banned.
We got banned.
And they're gonna be
too hot for television.
They're gonna be proud. They're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you got banned? Oh yeah, we're gonna put you on TV. We're gonna put you on the big stations." You know what I mean?
Too hot for television.
You know what I mean?
Too hot for television.
Yeah. So let's read.
Like South Park. We're that good.
Thanks, man. Hey guys, this doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good at all. Alright, are you guys ready? I don't know about this. Slightly less dear Jared and Mark of opinions. That tragic display in which you call episode 8 of Opinions. That was one last week. That was the fucking...
That was our best.
That was our best episode. We finally did.
We've been on a binge.
We've been on a binge. On the beach. We were on the beach.
We haven't stopped.
We were the was an absolute abomination. Not only were you completely hammered on gin, but the Oscar-winning director P.T. Anderson was candy flipping and fucked up the audio levels beyond belief. That's not true.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad.
We as the Illuminati are done pandering to you. We are done with the puns like a handful of runts. P.T. Anderson has been fired indefinitely, and we are drastically changing the format of this show? The show is called Opinions. Therefore, we are going to do the exact opposite of giving you complete artistic control.
What?
You will be respectful, responsible, and dependable, and are forced to provide the public with what they so desperately need.
Which is?
Opinions. What opinions should have been since the beginning. Actual, intellectual opinions. This is your final chance at immortality. Slightly aggravated, the CEO of the Illuminati, Guy Clinch.
I feel like that was a little bit harsh. Let's go do the show.
Let's go do the show.
Let's go do the show.
Wait,
We gotta get cleaned up. I'm gonna go home. Let's get cleaned up.
Let's get cleaned up.
Get cleaned up.
I think we have a way. I think we have a way out of this.
We gotta sober up a little bit.
This is our show.
Yeah, we gotta sober up a little bit.
We gotta
We're
think
good.
about this. I think we got it.
think
Let's
you
go
got
do the
it.
show.
I think we
Let's
got
go
it.
do the show. Let's do the show. Let's do the show.
Two. Welcome to Opinions.
Welcome to Opinions.
We have a wonderful show for you tonight. We have some interesting topics to discuss. I think we're going to do geopolitics.
Perhaps there was a few things I'd like to get into, and one was father and son relationships.
Interesting.
Yes.
I would love to talk about father-son relationships. It's an
there's-
interesting dynamic.
The whole family dynamic is very, very interesting to me, and I wanted
We get that Freudian psychology thing.
I wanted to discuss that in depth if we have enough time. Everything all depends on the time that we have. We're going to bring on a series of panel experts that will sit. These are the blue seats. Those are the wood seats. And we're going to sit down as a group and have
Just a panel discussion. It's
An
gonna be
intelligent
great.
discussion.
I can't wait to hear some different opinions.
I'm very excited to hear some
So,
opinions,
welcome
because
to Opinions.
that's what the show is. It's opinions.
There's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about Obama and the perceived media snafu in his actions with Syria.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I feel like there's a larger.
I'd love to discuss.
Yeah, I feel like there's a larger socio-economic kind of dynamic going on there than it's discussed about in the media. And for that, I'm going to get our media expert, JP Halley, on. Will you please come on, JP?
You can sit in the blue seat.
JP, I want to thank you for coming today.
Let's do
Thank you for having me.
a. Oh, you're
Thank
welcome. If we
So-
can do a respectable mic check on that.
Mic check. Mic check.
Are we good, Mr. LaBelle?
So, JP, you're the director for socioeconomic political theory over at Yardale.
Absolutely. Now, we met you when we were working at Wareco Industries that was located in Pittsburgh, and we were all studying at a school which doesn't exist
It was a
anymore.
wonderful autumn. That was a great autumn.
That was a good.
That was a good autumn.
That was a good few months that we had
beautiful
there.
It was.
And a lot of things that we were talking about your sugar intake, your daily sugar intake. And maybe I wanted to kind of just get into what we used to talk about a lot, and maybe if you could shed some insight.
Well, in the last few years, my sugar intake has gone down drastically. Mainly due to the feeling in my left toes. Now,
Is that gout?
it may be gout.
Now, is that affected by sugar in your life, or is
It
that
is, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Alcohol also affects gout.
Yes, I heard what is beneficial for gout. We've discussed this before. I think
we
know.
have. We have.
think you
Many
know.
times. Many
Yeah,
times.
if you wanna
Cherries.
share that-
I wanted to talk about Syria.
Oh, Syria.
I wanted to talk about Syria. I wanted to
Turn
talk
to the
about
page.
some social snafus.
I would love to.
What do you think about the media's perception of
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama's
President.
apparent snafu?
Well, He has had a lot of attention, obviously.
Very.
And throughout his presidency, the spotlight's been on him. I read an article the other day, the Irish government saying, quoting, that he's a war criminal and a murderer.
It means a lot coming from the Irish.
He's in the hot seat.
And one of the, I mean,
It
I think one of the
absolutely
things
does.
is too is you can't really
It
take.
absolutely does.
He's in the hot seat. That's
He
the
is in
thing.
the hot
He's a man. You know, the
It's
ideals.
hot
We could be idealistic or we could be realistic, and he's a man who's taken a position, I think, that needed to be taken.
Of course.
You know, and
Especially after the past few decades of what we've been dealing with as
That's right.
not only a country but a unit in world politics.
exactly.
And
exactly.
when you take into consideration what the general perception of the president of the United States is, and I think that he's been doing well for himself, and that might be an unpopular opinion,
It might be an unpopular.
especially considering my conservative
think-
background. But
I think the way he handled
I
Syria,
believe
JP. Back to our point, but I think the way he handled Syria was admirable, and I think
Somebody had to do it.
Yeah, somebody had to do it, and I think that. Well, I also think that him pulling back, him pulling back and saying, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be the United States of a former geopolitical background.
Sure.
Maybe we should create a new world incentive based on diplomacy, rather than
And you know who I think
threat.
had a lot to do with that? Michelle. His lovely wife, Michelle.
sure, she's a sweetheart.
Wonderful.
She
lady.
is. I met her.
Wonderful lady.
I met her in Cleveland. We had a what was the company that we worked for in like the turn of the millennium?
Well, yeah, Unidynamics.
Unidynamics.
They did the polystyrene. We used to do the.
Yeah, we worked with her in Cleveland. We met her, and she was very nice. She actually did a tarot reading for us, and it was very interesting. But yeah, she's a wonderful woman.
Certainly.
Yes.
And I actually had the occasion to meet her too. There was a gathering of the arts.
Now, was that the?
That was in Hard, New York.
I
It was
don't
a
think
gathering for the arts. It was more like a weekend arts festival for donors of the academy.
Sure.
Oh,
And you know, as I know, I sent Jacoby and Elijah there.
I couldn't make it that year. That was the that was
And
the year.
Michelle Obama sends her children there as well. So
Did Frank
I was
Sinatra
thinking
Jr.
about
play?
sending Sebastian there.
you should send Sebastian. It's a wonderful school. They're just building a
No.
new athletic center.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to repeat myself, but did Frank Sinatra Jr. sing at that event?
No, Sinatra was 2 years before.
That is
The junior.
that was the one that I attended. That one.
That was wonderful.
That was a great time.
That was really wonderful. They brought
Do you-
some
I
really good
remember
wine.
the chandelier was exquisite when we first walked in. Do you remember
Oh
that?
my God.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've
I
ever
was
seen
at a
in my life.
seminar in Des Moines. I couldn't make it that year. It was
Oh.
interesting seminar. But
I've had a lot of interesting experiences in Iowa. I think we should bring up our native Iowan, John Brennan.
John Brennan,
Sit in
welcome
this
to the
blue
show.
seat, in this blue,
Welcome to
this
Opinions.
blue chair right here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Lavelle, is it?
It's a cause for celebration. We have a common man on the show.
Should should he use the microphone that is right there, Mr. Lavelle, or should he?
So can you drag that a little bit? Would that work?
Yeah.
Drag that a little bit towards you.
Sure.
And we're gonna talk. Every once in a while, me and Mark like to have we do the
Jared and I.
we call the what?
Jared and I.
Jared and I, excuse me. We
Isn't
call the
there other
common man's
clip-on
perspective.
microphones though?
We get someone on the show.
Are there other
who-
clip-on microphones left?
I'm sorry, you gotta pull it up a little bit more.
No, are there
Sorry
other
about that,
clip-on
Steve.
microphones?
Is this good right here?
Yeah, sure.
We actually can't hear what you're saying.
Can we turn him? We can't hear you, but can you turn him down a little bit? Technical problems.
They happen.
Technical
Yeah.
problems.
A lot of those.
Bear
in
with
Iowa?
us, folks. We'll
Yes,
get these worked out in
absolutely.
just a
Oh,
second.
is that
lot of
mic? Is the mic
storms.
going, Steve? We can just cut this later.
We can cut this
we can
out.
just cut this out. So it's not a big deal. Steve, is the mic working? No, forget about it. Okay, the mic's all right. So
So you can hear me
sorry,
right?
let's cut back. And so every once in a while, we like to do a little segment we call the common man's perspective.
Common member for
We get someone who maybe doesn't necessarily have a formal education in the arts, but nonetheless has an invested interest in philosophy, the sciences, religion, art.
and this is our man.
And this is
And
our man.
the
We
man
have,
Thank you.
we have
Really
Sir
do well.
John Brennan here, and you were knighted. He was actually knighted, so we thought that
He was.
he's for his humanitarian work, and he's a 9-to-5 guy. He goes to his construction job, works and lives in Boston, Massachusetts.
Takes the morning train. I catch him in those early mornings. You're sitting there and you're riding that train into the city, and you see the factories and you see the sun rising through the smog, and you think, about the fragility of everything. And when I look at you, I think fragility, and I can't help but wonder.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering about if you feel more or less fragile where you're situated,
As in right here, as opposed to.
as opposed to Iowa. Back
Oh, absolutely. I feel much less fragile here. It's a great community here. Everyone's very welcoming. Union jobs, strong union leaders such as myself, allow us to work at a living wage for everybody.
It's good stuff. And
That's
you've been
great.
helping out hands-on with the disaster in Rio. I know you've done a lot of, I'm sorry to cut you off, JP. I know you've done a lot of fundraising. I know you've been to a lot of events. And I know you've gone down there yourself, seen the disaster hands-on, and actually pitched in.
Right.
Would you tell us a little bit about the disaster in Rio? Tell us, and this is how you got your Hands Across America nomination, by the way.
Right.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I hope you get it this year,
Special.
honestly. And I'm not saying this with a bias or just because you're on the show.
It's completely subjective.
Yeah, it's completely subjective. But in all honesty, I want you to be the winner this year.
Thank you.
I think
very
you
much.
deserve to take it.
Thank you.
Your humanitarian work is par none. Just tell us a little bit about the disaster in Rio.
Well, it's there's really no words to describe it. I mean, I spent a lot of time learning Brazilian, which is actually different than Portuguese. Most people don't know that. It's actually a completely different language.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Right. All the vernacular is entirely different. I mean, for one example, the word in Portuguese for dog is actually the word in Brazilian for mother. And a lot of those things, if you don't look deep enough into it, you insult a lot of people.
And you're going to get yourself in trouble
Right,
in a
right.
strange world.
Right.
Does anyone else have any experiences that they could share?
No, I've had some charming experiences when I went to Spain. I was in Barcelona.
Barcelona
Beautiful
looks
city.
it is a beautiful
You can
place.
just get there, you can get out, you can take the culture in, We went to Venice,
Oh, Venice.
streets of water.
A lot of theft there.
Beautiful.
It's
Venice
a
is a beautiful city, though.
dangerous place at night, though.
Absolutely
Yes.
beautiful city. You can take in a lot of the artwork. You can take a lot of the medieval artwork, and it's absolutely beautiful. Remember when you and me went to Ireland in our 20s?
Well, we went into Ireland in our 20s, and I also spent a summer in Ireland with my wife a few years back, and it was beautiful. The culture, it resonates with me so much.
I didn't honestly think that I'd be interested in the architecture of castles.
I wouldn't either, and it was funny because
But I remembered the history.
I
started remembering the history.
the Blarney Stone.
Yeah, and the history of civilization
Yes.
and the nature of people hoarding and keeping and then creating a society based on defense and
Of course.
all sorts of things. And all of a sudden the architecture just jumped out at me and I had to look into it. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Do you know, JP, do you know anything about 12th century Irish architecture?
I actually, the one area of my study that
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but what percentage Irish are you?
none at all.
None at all.
None at
Because
all.
I'm 30%, and I really connect with the Irish heritage
Really?
because of that.
Just takes a small amount.
Just takes a small amount.
It does,
Every
it
little
does.
step you take,
Yeah.
it all makes a difference in the end. But I would love to hear your response. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well,
you,
before I
considering-
get into the Irish thing here, I'd like to go back to Iowa.
Right.
Interestingly
Yes, yes.
enough. Now there's an influx in the corn industry right now, isn't there?
There is, absolutely.
It is out of control.
Government subsidy.
Where
I
do you
avoid
fit in
corn
with that?
products.
Where do I fit in with that? As far as my opinion on.
Your opinions? Are you affiliated with any corn?
I am not really in the agricultural aspect. I am more construction.
JP, how do you feel about government subsidies on corn on corn surplus? How do you feel?
Well,
That's very interesting.
I actually invest a lot in corn. So
Solid investment.
it is.
It's a solid investment.
It
And
will
I think
be.
for a civilized society to subsidize a necessary function of that society, we're going to need subsidization of privatized industry.
And I believe
Absolutely,
one day
absolutely.
it could become a source of currency. One,
It was back in the old days.
absolutely.
Think about it.
and
The
History
Native Americans
tends
called
to repeat
Native-
itself.
The Native Americans called it maize.
Maize.
They called it maize.
Yes.
Not like you get lost.
No, not the
No,
corn
not a
maize. The
No.
maize.
Which is, ironic considering the corn maze, which I always thought that was a clever joke.
Hmm.
But I digress. I wanted to compare, while we were on the conversation, or the topic, I should say, I'm sorry, of correlating Iowa to Ireland, I wanted
Right.
to talk about maybe the potato industry of Idaho and how Idaho correlates with Iceland. Because I think that all of these places that begin with I, whether it be one of the United States of America, or
They're clearly in cahoots.
there's something going on there, and I
Absolutely.
think there's a lot of.
Yes.
It's not like a conspiracy or anything. It's just a lot of similarities, and I thought that maybe we could correlate the cultures of these two areas. I know you have some notes on it.
Absolutely.
But you're an expert, so I'd like to.
Well, you can't. Iowa, yes, Ireland, Iceland, but you can't forget one of the biggest players on that chessboard would be Indiana, and they often get overlooked.
But
But
India too as well.
But
India,
what about
absolutely.
Idaho with the history of the potato? When you
Right.
correlate the potato to Ireland and to Idaho,
Right.
that there's something going on there, and I think that a lot of people who came to Ellis Island that were from Ireland ended up in Idaho, and I always thought that was a strange coincidence. And I was just wondering if you had anything to say on the subject while we're on it.
Not that I can think of right now.
I'm on it. You know what? I feel rude. I'm sorry. I feel rude. I have to interrupt you because we're limited time today. And this is our show.
This is our show.
So
Opinions.
it's opinions.
This is. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say that our show is on every night at midnight.
at midnight.
We might not be on Sunday nights, but we will be on
We
television.
have a lot of time here. You're right. We should take a moment.
Yeah.
We should think about. This show's been a long adventure,
Yeah, it's
and we've done a lot of episodes. And we have one episode that you're not going to be able to see unless you go online. So you should probably go check that out on YouTube. We're going to put it up soon. And
soon.
I think if you can see the journey we've grown, and I think that
We have grown as people and as men.
and his men, I think as well. But I feel rude, and I feel like we should get back for a minute because I was asking John about his disaster work, and I feel like the people out there really need to know about it because it's very important, and you have the resources in order to fund this charity by being here on our show. So
Right.
what you should do is, and you can hawk it, and that's okay, you know. So please tell us about your work in Rio. It's really phenomenal.
I would love to hear about it.
Well,
It's a great-
Don't even like get selfish. If you
yeah, it's a wonderful.
Yeah.
Shouldn't
You
be
did a good
swept
one.
under the rug.
Really, you deserve this.
well, I mean, I've already had enough notoriety from even the nominations alone. It's hard for me to continue to.
What do you do down there?
Pump
Tell
my
us
own
about the
ego.
day to day.
How does it
feel once you get done?
It feels great to be able to help, but there's also a feeling of helplessness when you see what they're going through, and you notice how little one person can do about it. But the great thing is, when you start something like I did, and you get enough people to go down and to help create new houses, for instance, new infrastructure to help this country, well, the city rather, regrow. And it is fascinating to see the power of humanity as far as
And I'm
when they
curious,
embrace
could you-
love as a
Could you
concept.
tell us some of the things that you've seen that maybe changed the way that you see the Western world and the way that you see your life yourself? You know, how you see your own life.
Well, yes, I would say at least just the sheer population of the city is incredible. It's like
the
nothing.
magnitude.
It's unbelievable. You go to New York City and you think it can't get any bigger than this, and then you go to Rio and it's
Bigger.
much bigger. Incredible.
And that's what it all comes down to is the people.
Exactly.
They're charming. There's a wonderful culture down there.
Wonderful
It's a
culture.
wonderful culture.
Absolutely.
It's a
If-
wonderful culture.
Fire.
Yes.
They know how to party. They do. They have
And
an
there's a rich
incredible
history,
nightlife.
though. There's a
Not
rich
like I
history
do,
of
but-
tradition. I think there's a rich history of tradition down there as well. It runs with all Latino peoples,
So it's-
Latino nations. There's a very rich history
Glorious
of tradition in those cultures.
And you can really tell when you go to one of those countries, the hospitality, and not only the hospitality, but the camaraderie between people. You see men helping each other out. You see these kind of things all over the world, but it's even more prevalent in a society where it's more people based.
I was reading an article from Thorndike over at Hopkins. Remember we did our internship with him?
Yes. Hopkins is a wonderful place to be.
It was a wonderful autumn.
Yes.
Beautiful autumn out
Beautiful
there.
autumn.
And-
It was peak foliage, I remember, and I was reading, what is it, Henry David Thoreau's Walden.
Oh my God.
And it was
for the
perfect.
100th time. I'm
For the
sure.
100,000th.
Yeah, what a book.
What a book.
But Hopkins wrote this paper on the ethnic relations between Middle America and South America, and the Western perception, specifically the United States, in a proto-capitalist manner, of Middle America being the same as South America, with staunch cultural differences. Very important work. I suggest you check it out. He was an interesting guy.
He was a very
He
interesting
got
guy.
his PhD.
He got his
He got
PhD
his
in the Sierra Madre, which is a very unique place. I studied out there with him. We were prospecting. We shouldn't have been, but we were. And
Is that
it,
for opal or
gold.
Gold.
Yes.
Gold.
And and my grandfather was there, and it was a breakthrough for me. But
Some of his theories were just absolutely brilliant.
his theories are brilliant, but
it's more of the way he put it out there.
Yeah,
for
and
us
I
to
don't
perceive.
necessarily agree with his
Yeah.
views on geopolitics.
they were very ambiguous. his writings were very, very vast. I mean, I have volumes upon volumes of documents. And I remember I had them in alphabetical order, and I was searching for this piece that he did on like mechanical growth and structure in Eastern Asia, and it was very, very interesting because it's a subject that isn't normally
Often gets
discussed.
overlooked.
Overlooked.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Vastly, I think.
Vastly,
actually.
yes.
It's kind of criminal.
Yeah,
I think it's almost a criminal.
I'm sorry. Did I said Eastern? I actually meant to say Western. You all knew what I was talking
Obviously.
about.
I read
But
the
for the
paper.
audience, I didn't want to confuse everyone in Western Asia.
I think we got some refreshments. And
We
I-
have some refreshments.
And I
that are
wanted,
coming
you know,
up.
when
I'm
we
actually
get-
quite parched.
When we get them in here, I wanted to do it in celebration of you and your charity work.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Very
much.
commendable.
Honestly,
And
I mean,
I must say it's an honor to be here. You guys do a wonderful show, and it's good that there's actually something on the air that is informative, where people share opinions freely.
And that's
You
why
know.
you're so good for the show, because
thank you.
when you come on the air, like you personify opinions.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of refreshments, I heard a very refreshing story the other day about communist relations in correlation with the monarchy, you know, the whole situation in Europe, and if those two things would ever work out hand in hand, if you could have a king and have a communist society at the same time, do you
it's an
think
interesting
do
proposition.
you think that that would work?
I mean,
Because
like, subjectively, and if you're looking at it logically, on a base level, the idea of a monarch is technically impractical.
impractical in the sense where it shouldn't be happening or can't.
Technically, on a technical level, it doesn't work.
It's
the
six
function
in one,
doesn't
half
fulfill
dozen in the other. It cancels itself out.
Communism, on paper, quite like other things like capitalism, do not technically work themselves out either. Oh, here are the refreshments. Olivia, could you please bring
Hello.
us up here?
Oh, lovely. But if I may
We
speak
have the
on this
producer of the
subject-
show.
Thank you so much.
She got her master's at Thorndike as well.
Yes, you did.
Fantastic.
Liv, what was
Thank
your
you.
thesis on?
What?
Where's that microphone? Is there another microphone? Oh, here's one. Come take a seat here, please.
There's no peaches in that, is there?
No, sir.
This is to you. Thank you so much for your wonderful work.
Thank you.
Excuse
You guys
me.
are great.
I wanted some of your opinions on geopolitics. We were discussing the nature of monarchs versus democracies and how those correlate to financial systems. Liv got her master's at, where'd you get your master's? Thorndike?
Yeah, Thorndike.
You studied with Hopkins.
I'm
didn't
sorry to interrupt. Could we get a few more glasses up here? A few more
you?
cups
I can go
across
get
the
some.
hall.
I'll get some.
Will you go get some?
I'll get some.
Okay.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 2. Grab 6.
6?
And can you also grab an implement to open, perhaps? How are you, miss?
I'm good.
You look absolutely ravishing right now.
Thank you.
Where do you go shopping? What is your outlet for fashion?
Looks like Talbot's to me.
Talbot.
Is
I
it
don't like to talk about where I shop. It's no one's business.
How's it coming with those glasses?
I'm wearing J. Crew tonight.
You look lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to make sure.
I would jump into a discussion right now. There's many topics, but I would feel very wrong to do that without my co-host. So we're gonna wait respectfully.
Did I miss
I'm
anything?
gonna take some notes.
Yes, you've missed about 20 minutes, but it's all right. It's fine. It's been going good. We've had some very intellectual, interesting discussions. We have an expert here from Iowa, and we're drinking a toast of him.
I think we're supposed to turn this a little bit so we can pick everybody up. Liv, there's supposed to be a problem with your microphone. Can I see?
Mr. LaBelle, if you have any trouble hearing any of us at any point in this procedure, feel free to let us know. We'll
Actually, no, that one's fine.
clarify at once.
It's fine. Can you hear me?
Do I have an implement to open?
Oh,
A
could
lighter?
somebody give us a, does somebody smoke around here? Do you smoke?
That's
Is there a
like a bottle
smoker?
opener.
Is there a
Average Joe.
smoker on the
I
panel?
do. I brought my.
You enjoy a fine cigar.
Liv, you did your dissertation on a subject that I find extremely interesting: philanthropic operations in conjunction with aristocratic society and the effects thereof. And I thought it was actually kind of fascinating.
Thank you.
Could you tell me a little bit about that paper?
No.
Did Hopkins?
The way you left us
Yeah, you left
at
us
the end
hanging.
of that paper,
Hanging.
you left us hanging, which
Hanging.
gave us a drive to
And
go
Hopkins
out.
told me years later that you vowed to continue to work on that, but you decided not to. And that was a good summer. Me and Mark drove up from Yardale. Do you remember that?
I remember that, and
We helped you work on your dissertation.
The dissertation, which those were the documents that I was speaking about earlier. Olivia helped me compile and arrange those.
You almost
Sounds
got
like a
tenure.
wonderful
You almost
summer.
got tenure.
Well, that wasn't summer. That was a winter.
Yeah, you were up for the
yes.
the Pembroke, right? The fellowship.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not one to boast. I'm sorry. I don't like
It's
to
all
talk
for you.
about myself.
This is lovely.
There's no peaches in this?
No peaches.
Are you allergic to peaches?
Yes.
Your sister's here today, isn't she?
We should get her in one of the wooden seats.
Yes, she is.
She does philanthropic work too, as well as John Brennan.
Now, what sort
But
of
she comes from an
philanthropy does
aristocrat.
she
Well, she comes from an
involve herself in?
aristocratic background.
Aristocratic.
Liv, tell us what she does. Chelsea, please come on up.
This is wonderful.
Have a seat in one of the red chairs. Is it? Could I
This
kiss
is
you?
from an orchard around here.
No.
And this is to you, John Brennan. No, this is made right here in Ipswich, actually.
Chelsea.
Your
Well, hello.
sister.
Welcome to the panel, Miss.
She works in philanthropy as well.
Tell us a little about your philanthropic work.
Can you put it behind?
Robust.
I'm honestly currently in the middle of something right now. I'd rather not discuss it.
You know, this isn't a show for
She's
secrets.
passionate about her work.
This
You're
isn't a
passionate
show
about-
for
you can hold the
secrets,
microphone.
But
You don't have to talk about it.
feel free to.
She's modest. She's modest.
Feel
because
free
we're-
to hold back. You
What-
don't. We don't want you to say
Right.
anything that you don't.
I
Feel
just thought this was a
comfortable
good
talking
opportunity
about.
to promote your charity.
Mhm.
I thought that you could get into discussing. I know what you do for those children, and I know
Sorry.
that it makes a serious difference in our society.
Pardon.
I think in order for a civilized society to exist, people have to be not only forced to pay taxes, but willing to participate in private charity as well. And I just think what you do is phenomenal.
I
what
agree. I just don't want my charities and associations put on this show, so.
Well, this show
Well, this is a highly respectable show, so you
Absolutely.
Feel free, well regarded in certain circles.
I don't
and
think I'd be
communities.
here if it wasn't.
feel free to
I wouldn't insult my
indulge.
Please, you produce the show, Liv. You should have a certain amount of pride and respect for what we do here, because I think that we're providing a positive message and a serious outlet for ideas and discussion.
We are, especially for the young people of the country. I think that we are a society, and we can come together, and can we join hands right now as a panel? We can join hands as a
It'll be the
panel
First time.
and as a world,
My hands are very cold. right now,
and
I'm
we
sorry.
will save the world as a generation. And I think that we will save the world with shows like this.
We need to discuss. We need to have ideas.
People can tune in at midnight on Channel 9 Comcast in Ipswich. People can tune in all over the North Shore on Channel 33 Verizon. And they can see discussions like this every night of the week for 2 weeks. So you can tune in and you can watch these discussions every night, unless you are extremely stupid.
While
because-
we're still holding hands, I want to try to do something real quick. There's a little game I invented back in college, and this game's called Let's Disagree.
I've never been one for games,
Okay.
but this sounds
All right.
intellectual.
It's fun. What we do is it's a paradox essentially.
A
We
paradox.
We get Socratic, and this game is it's Socratic in nature. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
a paradox.
Yes.
And what we do is we hold hands, and it's called Let's Disagree, and we just openly disagree with each other.
Okay.
But we hold hands, and you know what? We
I don't like
learn.
that.
No, we
Forced
learn.
friendship?
We learn that different viewpoints and different ideas are what creates growth and stimulates.
Absolutely.
I
stimulates
don't like that
knowledge.
either.
Sounds like a terrible.
So I
idea.
disagree with you.
I
No, I agree with you.
I disagree.
I don't really.
I think that that GMOs are not the future, and I think that just because people think that they are the future, it doesn't mean that they're safe. I think that there are a lot of interesting,
That's outrageous.
scary,
I totally
scary
disagree.
things.
we can
going
disagree to
That's
agree
outrageous.
on this.
I,
one.
I disagree.
On.
I think that in order for the United
I
States
agree.
economy to subsist, we need a continuing war machine and an operation of imperialism throughout the world.
I disagree with you,
I
Jay.
disagree.
I agree.
I
As someone
disagree with
who
you.
was raised on Iowa GMO corn, I would say personally, I wouldn't be alive if not for GMOs. And I'm a healthier, stronger man who will most likely live to a ripe old age of 105.
And what year were you born?
I was born in 1972.
Well, that makes sense.
And then at the end of the game, what
Corn-fed.
we do is we all hold hands and we say, let's all agree to disagree. So 3, 2, 1, let's all agree to disagree. And that's how we learn.
And that's how we learn. And that's how the
Isn't
world
that wonderful?
changes. That is
Isn't that wonderful? I think they should do that in schools.
Differences. It's
I
all
think if
about
they got to
differences.
kids at a young age with that they would really
See,
be.
the thing,
They
and
should do
that's-
that in Congress.
Yes.
There's an extra
This
cup
is
of
just. And now that you
like-
bring it up about schools, I would like to talk about the amount of money that schools are getting.
Interesting.
And I think that it is an abomination. There are schools all around this country that are struggling to give kids $10,000 computers, and that they're struggling to give kids, a fully secure camera-based school where everything is being scrutinized and being spied on.
I mean, do you think there should be more federal funding in our public schools?
I think there should be more federal funding, and I think there should be more security. And
I think it should be extended to the libraries as well outside the schools.
But I don't know if federal funding is the necessary answer. I mean, we're
it
talking.
might not be the answer, but it's definitely one of the topics in question, and I think that's why it's worth
Absolutely.
I
discussing.
just found out about this new public school online. So you go to public school,
Interesting.
have the same public school teachers, but it's online.
It's logical.
Interesting.
And
You
what
don't
I
even need
read,
to go
I
to
read,
the school
I read that MIT.
or have the social interaction or bonding experience for a child. You
Which
can
I think
just
isn't very
stay at
important
home.
anyway, because
You can just
honestly,
stay at
I was
home
homeschooled.
in
I
your
was
room.
I was homeschooled, and I didn't. Honestly, I'm much better off for being homeschooled. If I wasn't homeschooled, I would probably have a lot more issues. And then later, when I went to Yardale, me and Mark attended the academy. Everything was fine.
Mark and I.
When Jared and I attended the Yardale MIT, we spent thousands of dollars in courses, and we spent hours upon hours with our professors learning. And now all of that information is just available online. You can access that information. Do you guys?
Right. I mean, the only reason you could really attend an academy is for a wonderful autumn. I think.
Of course.
And we had a lot of life
There
changing.
were countless times where life-changing times where Jared and I would
Each
sit,
one was a separate piece.
Studying
away
on
from
the quad.
we would sit in the front yard of the school, and we would eat cabbage and drink cider.
Yeah.
And we would discuss just everything, life, love, the generosities of mankind, and human interaction, and just those were the seasons that I remember.
Yeah.
Those.
Raw
they-
cabbage, huh?
I'm sure they were beautiful
raw,
times.
well, we boiled it, of course.
Oh.
Of course.
Sorry.
This is in Iowa.
Yeah, I know.
None of us are
We're a
novelists.
different breed.
No, we're not novelists.
We do
Wait,
have-
no,
This
one of
goes
us
back
is.
to the Ireland conversation with
One
the
of-
boiled cabbage. But let's not get back into that.
well,
now.
we
Michael
can.
Richardson.
That could be another segment.
Do you remember him?
Michael
He became a prominent author.
I've read his works. He actually studied Aboriginal relations with the Europeans.
He's rising in the fields too. I heard as well.
Yes.
Heard within the field, he's now one of the top guys.
Yeah, the fields in the
Where did, he,
outback.
where did he get his dissertation?
The Australian outback.
Yeah.
Michael
That's right.
Richards, as in Kramer.
No, Michael Richardson.
Michael Richardson.
Oh,
Richardson.
Esquire.
Different.
Oh, right,
Esquire.
right,
Yeah, he's a
I should
third,
know.
but Michael Richardson was his short name, and he used to publish under Michael Richardson because he didn't want to do Michael Richardson III Esquire.
Right.
Now it's interesting that you
The
bring
third.
up Seinfeld because I wanted to talk about how Seinfeld affected the 90s generation and how its nihilistic implications either benefited or detracted from the social conscience and the way that we
What about
as
the American
humans,
sitcom in general? You know,
not even the sitcom, but human interaction in itself. It's a broader subject than that. It's now you look at a group of friends, and these people represent far more than they appear to be. These people have, very very divided intricities to their personalities and affected society in that decade. And I think that that was when TV really started being important.
well, I mean, there was important moments. There's always been important moments.
I mean, fictional television.
Fictional television, I think there's always been important moments. We
Absolutely.
can go back to the 50s. We can see the episodic mythological nature of Star
See, I
Trek.
wasn't allowed to watch television.
In the 50s?
In the 50s and
Really?
60s.
Your
Not in the
parents didn't let you
50s.
watch television?
No, not in the 50s. I never got to see Star Trek, so I guess.
And Twilight Zone was wonderful too, as
I
well.
watched that documentary on Star Trek.
You saw a documentary?
The
Was that
impact
Ken
it
Burns?
had, yeah, it was the impact it had
He
on...
did one. Ken Burns did one of the Twilight Zone, right?
Oh, the
It
Twilight
was the
Zone.
Twilight Zone, Star Trek.
I've seen the
It talked
Twilight Zone
about
and Syndicate.
Forbidden Planet, like all the sci-fi.
I'm not much for
shows
TV in
that-
general though.
Yes, in general. Speaking of generals, though, MASH.
There are a few bright spots though.
MASH was a wonderful show that I forgot about.
Bright spot.
Bright spot.
I did not
I used to
like
watch that
MASH.
show with my son when he was this big.
Yeah.
He absolutely loved that show.
You know, I've just had a great idea. Would you guys like to write a folk song called "Suicide Is Painless" right now
I'd love to.
and dedicate it to MASH?
I would love to. Can I get that? I play a little guitar. You remember that?
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
I think we have a small organ we might be able to plug.
I don't know if we can plug that in, but let's take a.
We'll try it. I think I have a harmonica in my pocket.
I never stumbled into instruments. Always.
Well, I
stayed in
wouldn't
the
blame
books.
you. You got the noggin. for
Always
it.
stayed in the books. Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Sorry, we seem to be lacking an outlet for our keyed instrument. So this is going to be harmonies, guitar, and harmonica.
There's a plug over there, Mark.
There's a plug over there.
Over there.
There's a pilot. Sure.
Excuse me.
Would you like to do the honors and play the keys?
I would love to.
Girls, sure you can do harmonies?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna sit over here.
I'll
I
see
would
what
love
I
to
can
do
mix in.
harmonies.
Thank you.
Okay.
This song is a product of a combination of different influences that I think we all have.
Imaginations as well.
Especially the stuff, I mean, we all studied multicultural contexts and different ideologies of cultural civilizations.
Yes, we did.
And I think that in all honesty, that we all have a certain background in understanding multicultural music as well. I certainly have.
Can you sit in that seat, please?
One of my sub-minors was, if you remember correctly, Mark. And
Sub-minor,
I think
yes.
you were there for that period of my life for a little while. I
Was
think
that
you
when we
did
were
it.
studying Deep Pacific Ocean life, or was that?
That was a completely different period of time. One of my sub-minors was African drumming.
Absolutely.
In particularly tribal African drumming.
Interesting.
And it had quite a profound effect on my life. Okay.
What are you gonna do in the
So I think all of us are gonna have different influences. Mark, I know you like the blues, not even in an academic way. You're a blues guy.
I'm a blues guy.
He's a blues
I'm a
guy.
blues guy in my heart and soul.
He's a blues guy. And John is he's a folk transitional kind of guy, a post-prog new wave.
I grew up Scandinavian gypsies. Taught me how to play this.
Interesting.
That keyboard.
Interesting. Well, we saw. Give me some backups, girls. You know this one. Down to the ocean. Well, we saw the size of the city, New Orleans. Now you break down that dam,
You break down that dam,
and you make
and you make the decisions that you'll make in your
so
life. And
we
your
go.
mother calls you up. She tells you that
Go
your
straight
baked
up.
dinner's ready, and you go home
To
and
that
you eat
message in the
it.
sky.
Pick those bones.
New one, ready? 1, 2, 3. Zach Jelly. With your pancake. Zach Jelly, remember this one? With your pancake. You're gonna bring down bad and the things you used to do. Take it away, Mark.
Oh, sack jelly going down in the
sing with the old town in the river, and I'm going down with the town and the reels and the road in my soul. Going to bison and everybody going, ooh, that's my culture, baby. That's my world.
We used to listen. I remember we used to listen. The three of us would get together.
So long.
And we would listen to the Robert Johnston blues. And we would listen to all those old blues demos. You ever listen to those, John?
Absolutely.
They're wonderful, aren't they?
Fantastic.
Really wonderful. So that's our little attempt at bringing culture to the show, and I think that we do a good job here. I think we do it best.
I think we do it wonderfully, yes. I really. Do you guys want to play one last song and then I'll take a bow?
Yeah, we'll take a bow. We'll get out of here.
Okay.
I think that was a good episode.
I think it was a
did a
very
good job
good
today, guys. Thank you guys. I want to thank everyone for coming.
You guys did
before
a
we leave.
great job.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Olivia,
Olivia. Thank you,
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
I'm not.
Thank
I'm
you,
not
John,
impressed.
and thank
You're
you,
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you for having me.
Joseph.
Very inspiring.
Joseph
Very inspiring.
Pumpkin, and
I,
thank you for.
I'm not buying it.
Hope I can
This
return in the near
I'm
future.
not buying it.
You will be able to return. This is going to be a long-running tradition. So let's play one last number.
We got one last number, and we want to say, if you want intellectual discussion, if you want opinions based on facts, then you should tune in every night at midnight to channel 33, Verizon
And Channel 9 Comcast.
Channel 9 Comcast.
Because if you remember, it's only our and your opinion, and everybody has their own.
Let's do one to take us out.
Yeah, let's do one.
I think you'll know this one, John. You've listened to some of that Delta stuff, right?
Oh, definitely.
Here we go, boys. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam! I ran down. I said, damn. I ran down. I said, damn, doing that thing you used to do, yeah.
Blow, man, blow!
Well, I hear that train coming up those tracks, and I'll take my daughter back to the place where we picked those plans. And I ate that dinner with my mother and my sister, and I sat down on that chair, and I knew where I came. Yes, I can. Woo!
Have a good night, everybody.
That's enough.
Have a good night,
That's
everybody.
enough. It's done.
Have a good night.
That was
Thank
really,
you for being
night.
part of
really
this.
well done.
Thank you.
Finish my champagne here.
Cut. We did a good job.